Hello, Coach Magazine Global readers and YouTube channel audience. We are here with our guest, Kathleen, today. She is the founder and the director of Cathleen Merkel Limited, thinking partner in the leadership space, facilitator, host of the Legendary Leaders podcast, leadership consultant, executive coach. Welcome, Kathleen O'Sullivan. We are so excited to have you here. Thanks for being here with us today. How are you?
First of all, thank you for having me. Um, I feel like a little bit in a completely different space right now. I just said to you, I finished a podcast recording that lasted over 90 minutes this time. And now I can be interviewed and share my views, and that's a very different place. So I'm excited, I'm slightly nervous, but yeah, looking forward to a great dialogue with you.
I am so delighted to have you as a podcast host too. From podcast host to tea talk host, it's going to be a great
Exciting.
conversation today. So I'm going to go with my first question. I'm curious to know, how did you get into coaching? Was there a specific event or moment that inspired you to pursue with this path?
Yeah, I mean, that's a short question. And Seda, I want to say that requires a long answer, but I'm not trying to make it too long. There were actually quite a few moments that slowly but surely built that way to coaching. The first moment was when I was 21. That was the first time I was thrown into a management role. And I haven't had any manager experience then, and I felt quite inexperienced and in general, basically trying to find my real me, who I was, what I was stood for, and so on and so forth. And I worked with a coach, and I still remember this moment when I sat in her little home office space, coaching space, and I was talking about my mom and my relationship to my mom and so on. And I was wondering, what has that got to do with me being a manager in this organization? The first moment in hindsight where you notice you coach the person, not necessarily the topic. And that was just brilliant. I got curious about coaching. And then there were a few moments. I have, for most of my life, been in human resources, learning and development roles. So you work with coaches and offer coaching to other people. But then a few years later, 6, 7 years later, I did an internal coaching training. I found it fascinating. And that training led me to shift a few behaviors. Because one of the key feedback that I received, and I talk about that quite often in my work, is you are too direct in your communication, you're too blunt, too abrupt, too German, perhaps as well. And Seda, you disappeared now from my screen. Just wondering if you are still
Yes,
there.
yes,
Here
okay.
you are. Good. Love it when these moments happen. So yeah, a little bit too direct, too abrupt, and so on and so forth. And I didn't quite know what to do with that now because it was a part of my nature. And in coaching, in that training, I noticed, oh, right, okay, we have two of these, we have one of that. That actually helps with the direct approach. Let's listen first. It was the first time that I learned to let go of my own ego. I don't have to be the one who knows it all, who speaks first, who shares all of her expertise. It was a process. It took me a bit of time to get there, but it was the start of that process, and so on and so forth. So that was a big moment for me. And then I had a big light bulb moment when I was completely stressed out. I headed towards burnout in one of my roles, and I had to literally remove myself from my work for a while. And I traveled, went away. And on those travels, I met like a life coach, a guru, you could say, in an Ayurvedic environment. And I thought, oh, the way he works and his people, his team work with you, how they hold space for you and how they are not judgmental towards you. That's pretty cool. And throughout those weeks that I've spent there, I noticed that it came out of me more and more. So I still remember sitting in the pool, hanging out with other guests and coaching them without calling it coaching. And then it took just a few more people that I came across in my life who said to me, why don't you move towards that space? And so I did my training then in the end, started in 2015 doing that. And then slowly but surely moved towards that. And last but not least, what I would say is where you focus your energy is what you can create in your life, right? So really manage your energy and see where it goes, where it pulls you. Because my energy was literally pulled towards coaching over those years. And it basically happened then when I was offered a role in that space as well, to become an internal learning partner and coach in the business. And that was it, really.
Yeah. Wow. I can totally resonate with your story. It was the same with me. Like, I am really get into this coaching thing naturally. I didn't know that the coaching is a professional back then. And I was doing it naturally with my friends in my workspace
Yeah.
during a coffee talk. It was a coffee talk back then. Now I'm doing this 5 tea talks.
Here we
But
go.
it is amazing how you find your path
Yeah.
and how you like to help each other, help others to find their own ways to towards their goals. So that you mentioned that you get your trainings, and I wonder about the credentials. Let's talk about a little bit these ICF credentials. Some people view them as an obstacle, while
Yeah.
others see them as a benefit for the coaching industry. What are your thoughts on this? How do you
Oh,
perceive this impact?
and you know what? I'm in between. I'm totally in between. I remember when I started getting on my PCC track, so I decided a while ago that I want to apply for PCC credential, ICF credential. And I always procrastinated because it just didn't make the time for it. I had so many other things to do in the moment, so that's not on my highest priority list. However, for me, it is important because literally everybody can call themselves a coach nowadays. And what really, and I'm going to be very blunt and direct here, what really annoys me is that people can go on an evening online class for 2 hours about coaching, and afterwards they call themselves coaches. And I think there's a risk for the entire coaching industry because we are not yet regulated. You have the boards like ICF, for example. Yes, great. But what else is there in quality supervision? What else is there if coaches do something harmful in their work to people? Psychiatrists, therapists, they are clearly under supervision, and they have to be. We choose to be. We don't have to be. And where are all the other quality controls? And I think we have a real challenge there in the coaching industry. But I said to you, I'm torn, and I am torn. I remember when I went to my supervisor, sharing the decision with her that I'm going to go down that route, and sharing with her the first challenges that I've experienced in my first um, coach mentoring sessions, where you record sessions, you share it with your coach mentor. She basically takes it apart, or he, according to the ICF credentialing, markers, and so on and so forth, and then gives you feedback and you explore it all together. And I shared it with my supervisor, and she said to me, "Why do you do it?" She herself isn't credentialed and she's happy with it. She attracts a lot of clients and she's doing incredible work, transformational work. And she said to me, I am free. I feel liberated and coaching in my own style, in my own sense, and not like a board tells me to do. And I don't want to be put into a certain kind of frame that this is how I need to be as a coach. And I get where she is coming from. And it's not just her who has shared that with me. I spoke to quite a few coaching professionals who share a similar opinion. But here's what I've experienced in the first 2 sessions with my coach mentor. I was almost ashamed to have that conversation with her. And that's obviously my stuff as well, my confidence and so on. But I remember feeling this dreading sensation of, oh my God, I need to send her my recording. And then when we had the conversation, I was almost like, oh my God, she's going to share feedback with me now in a moment. And I felt horrible about it. Now, here's the reason why I felt horrible about it, because I could literally notice in that coaching session or those coaching sessions that I was a different person. And I was different in terms of clunky, trying to fit in, So focused, it's like you go into an exam and you're so focused on trying to pass that you lose your sense of flow, your natural self, your way of being and holding space for the other person. You're so focused on what do I need to do? What do I need to pay attention to? And it felt unnatural, and I came across unnatural. I asked loads of stacking questions. I kind of phrased questions in a very clunky manner. And I would say I lost my way of being truly in this dialogue, in this flow with the coachee. Now, down the road a little bit further, I get that back more and more. I feel more confident in it again, and I get into my natural flow. But man, it's really, really challenging. And that makes me then question, why do these kind of markers exist? I give you a simplistic example. One sentence opener I use quite frequently is, I wonder. I wonder how come, and so on and so on. Because as you know, as a coach, we don't ask why is that the case. We want to be more explorative. But I wonder isn't a good thing to do as well, because it isn't about you and as to whether you wonder, it's only about the other person. So if you get caught up in all of these details, what you shouldn't say, what you shouldn't say, how can you still be natural in your own flow? In your own sense and flow. And I think I have become a little bit more rigid. I definitely lack the sense of authenticity. I would like, and now I'm getting there, step into a more engaging relationship and dialogue with the coachee. Instead of focus on how to follow all the steps in the process precisely. I will follow the process, but I do it in my own way. And if we could create some more openness in the credentialing system, to me personally, that would mean a lot and that would be wonderful.
Yes, you make it very clear. I can understand totally. I haven't started my credentials yet, and just to listen to you make me nervous already.
Yeah, and I apologize for that, because as with coaching as well, we bring our baggage, we bring our experience, right, Zeta? And this is my baggage of always trying to prove myself, coming across in a professional manner, being good at what I deliver, all of this nice stuff, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my honest experience.
So you already covered my next question about authenticity, being your authentic self, while following this credential PCC credentialing. So I'm skipping that question to my next question. The journey of the coach is undoubtedly significant, but I'm curious to hear your perspective. How do you believe the coach's personal journey matters in the coaching session? Does it have a place there at all, considering the focus should be on the client?
Hmm. I think some of it I also alluded to in my previous response. But again, it flows nicely into this credentialing question, because you should actually, or I should probably say, well, the coach's story has no place in the coaching session, because it's all about the coachee. But here we are as human beings talking to another human being. And we bring our mess, we bring our experiences, we bring our questions as well. Now, should we bring these questions, the messiness up, and make it about us in a coaching session? Absolutely not. And I think we all can agree on that, right? But coaching goes simply beyond asking powerful questions and holding the space. They are important tools, but it's not all. We often choose clients because their journey has something to teach us. In the beginning, when I started out, I chose clients because they were available and it was fun to work with them. But nowadays, I also think about, okay, what is their journey? What are they going through? Obviously, do I believe I can support them? Right? Are they interested and really bought into coaching? But also, there's a learning path in it for me as well. And I make it very tangible. I met a lady a few months ago that was introduced to me. And she is someone who has, for most of her life, been in very significant, very, very senior roles in the UK. And when I met her for the first time, I thought, ooh, that's a very strong woman. And I had this moment of intimidation that I had when I was in my 20s as well, of very senior leaders. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to behave? And so on. Until I received feedback when I was in one of my leadership roles that I'm too intimidating. So I think sometimes we pay attention to certain traits and behaviors that we have inside of us. We may be put off by them. We may be attracted by them as well. Similarity bias might play a role here. But also in this moment, I realized, what is it that challenges me here? And she, at some point, asked me as to whether I want to become her coach and to work with her as she is going through a bit of a transition between roles. And my first response was, she's asking me, this person working in this role, and that after years of being a coach, right? And the second thing I did was I brought it back to my supervisor again. She has fun with me. And I said to her, what's going on here? What's happening here? Because I don't want my self-doubt, my imposter get in the way of having a really fruitful coaching relationship. And basically there was so much stuff from my inner critic that I had to again work through. We all work through the inner critic pieces through our lifetime. And it came up in this moment again for me. And I realized that this is for me a great learning opportunity as well, to work through the critic and access my mentor a little bit more. So that's what I mean with we choose clients, because their journey also has to teach us something. And the work challenges us to continue our deep work and to even deepen our work going forward, because we grow as coaches as well, in order to give really and offer the best services. Mm-hmm. My coach actually, so I have a coach supervisor, I have a coach, and so on and so forth. And when my coach was coaching me last week, she follows the ICF framework inside out. It's wow. I find it astonishing how she does it, and it still feels so beautiful and natural. So it works, it happens, and can work really nicely. But she said something in between to me, and that was, it feels to me like we are on a playground playing with one another right away. And I don't need to share the whole context here. But she highlighted basically that she was projecting one of her experiences onto me, and she was wondering about it and as to whether I might notice it and it gets in the way. According to the ICF framework, that might have not been a good thing to do. In the moment when she called out her own inner work as a coach to me as the coachee, I felt so strongly connected to her. I had a giggle. I was just like, oh my God, that's a beautiful visualization, actually. So that was, again, a moment of bonding, of connecting. And it made me realize something else. And it put me into my playful, creative self to explore the topic from a different perspective. So again, just another example where it makes sense to bring your own stuff, to call it out as well, and how it can be really powerful. And last but not least, I've done a qualification in intuitive coaching end of last year. And one thing that was highlighted to me very, very strongly there is that it's very important as a coach to follow your intuition. So again, it's your own stuff that's going on, but there's simply some sort of a message that wants attention for a reason. Yeah. And it might well be that you say in this moment, okay, that's something I might have to deal with after, but it might be something that might be worthwhile calling out in this moment. So yes, it is important to bring yourself with all your mess and your story, and to explore it and not to suppress it as well.
Yeah, you mentioned to talk about your own inner work to make a connection with your coachee. And that brings me to my next question, which is coaching mentoring approach. I'm intrigued by this concept. And in your opinion, what's the impact of integrating coaching and mentoring? How does the combination enhance the coaching experience and benefit clients?
Ah, I'm trying to stay short with this one,
Yeah,
Seda.
you're doing a very great job.
Oh, I mean, first of all, I come back to the point I made earlier. We are human, right? And so therefore we are all different. We learn differently as well. Some people really appreciate mentoring, getting some advice, some insights, shared experience, finding community through that as well, and learning from somebody's stories and experiences. Great. Some people need thorough and proper coaching, i.e., we are mirroring back, we are holding the space, we are asking great questions because we have the strong belief that somebody else holds the truth, the answer already in themselves. So it depends a little bit on the preferences. My natural style, not the ICF credentialing style, is I offer a mixture. I call myself a coach mentor. However, what I will always do is I will always contract with my clients on the nature of our work. So I will never just become a mentor suddenly out of the blue. I will always say to them, what is it you want? What is it you need? What would be most useful to you? And then we agree on the level of coaching and mentoring. For me personally, the majority of the session is pure coaching. And from time to time, I may be asking the coachee to say, would it be useful for you if I shared an experience with you that I've made, but also calling out that this is my experience and my experience might be very different from theirs. So that's really important. So the need for contracting is definitely clearly there. Always keep in mind that it is about them. It's not about us as coaches. So
Yes.
never share your experience and start to mentor because you want to share your knowledge and your expertise and fulfill your own needs of ego, I would call it very simplistically. That has no place there.
Mhm.
So if you step into the mentoring role in that moment, it's almost like you step into a different chair. If we want to take the transactional analysis approach out, then always do it for them and
Mhm.
see as to whether it works, as to whether it's useful or not, and then adjust if not.
Yeah.
Um, and then overall, I would say what coaching and mentoring of high performance employees really requires is the use of a combination of soft skills, such as empathizing, listening, motivating, encouraging. So it has to have this real positive approach,
Mhm.
so that people still feel encouraged to try it themselves, to do something with it. If you just throw knowledge and experience at them and nothing is then happening and they can't use it or don't want to use it,
Mm.
it's a bit of a lost opportunity from my perspective.
Yeah.
And it also means leading, demonstrating, correcting, challenging, modifying, perhaps sometimes incorrect behavior or understanding, sometimes perhaps pushing a little bit, and really making sure that you're asking of coaching and mentoring excellence from yourself and the others. So what I mean by that is you still need to be in this space where you become playful, where you're truly with the other person and you see what is it they want to get out of it and how can you help them get that and demonstrate those behaviors, and also how can you make sure that you give to the coachee what they truly need in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope I make sense.
Yes, it really totally makes sense. It's like you're basically having the skills in your skill basket and tap into whatever you need at the moment for your
Yeah,
coachee, for your client. And if it's a mentoring, you tap into that. If it's a coaching, you go back to that. And if it's another thing, you just use these tools at the same time in one session, maybe. To make the best out of that session for your coachee.
yeah,
Yeah, it totally
yeah.
makes sense.
And when I talk about excellence, it's also the excellence with regards to turning around when you notice this is just not the right path. And
Mhm.
because the coachee calls it out, because they are now more stuck than ever, these are signals when you notice, okay, no, you're falling into a monologue, for example, or that is perhaps not what they wanted to hear. Recontracting with them in the moment and to say, okay, where are we heading next? How is that working for you? What's landing with you? What isn't? And be absolutely willing to turn around to say, look, we tried it, we gave it a go, but let's explore a different path. Which path would be most useful for you? Just because you offer mentoring as well doesn't mean it always works.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's about noticing what's working or what's not
Yeah.
also. Yeah. So this brings me to my last question. We all have those aha moments for that leave a lasting impression. Can you share one such moment from your coaching sessions or a podcast? What was it like for you to witness that moment of revelation or discovery in your client or guest? How did it influence your own growth as a coach or podcast host?
Wow. I mean, you sent me this question before and I had exactly the same reaction, like, there are so many. When it comes, I will become a little bit more precise and give you an example. But when it comes to the podcast, there's literally no podcast conversation where I don't have aha moments, where I don't learn, and where my curiosity doesn't take over, because it is so fascinating. And so therefore there's always so much to learn and so many fantastic aha moments. I think from the coaching conversations, those are always the moments when somebody, so there are two moments, and I give you an example as well. When somebody comes to you with a clear topic, a clear goal they are trying to achieve. In my case, it's often leadership related, often leadership in an organization and the kind of leadership that I want or need to demonstrate in order to grow. And quite often people bring something that feels so tactical, and I think we have all as coaches experienced that before. And then you realize, whoa, we are going down a completely different path, and that path goes deep because we're going into the personal world of that person, their inner turmoil, dramatic experiences perhaps from the past, childhood experiences, and you notice suddenly in front of you sits this very fragile human being, almost a child from a few years ago, that has experienced negative communication, perhaps even verbal abuse, and so on and so forth. And this fragile person now sits in a leadership role with higher responsibility, trying to make the world a better place and to offer something to their people that they haven't experienced in their past. And you break through that wall, and I just get goosebumps talking about it, and you just sit there with goosebumps, sometimes a lot of emotion as well, where it's just like, oh wow. And you are actually stunned as a coach by how deep you can go, the breakthroughs you can create, where you might also go borderline into the therapy direction. So obviously something to watch out for as to whether you feel comfortable going there, or when is the boundary for you to say, maybe someone else needs to step into that work. But that is for me really, really powerful. And then something that I've heard from day one of my coaching training in 2015 is the work always happens after the coaching session. Don't expect everything to happen during the session. And I keep saying that to clients when we start contracting. And it's so fascinating. I had that last week. I have been working with a coachee for the last 5 months. And coming from a very hectic, high demanding, ever changing background, and it's all fast paced and so on and so forth. And you sometimes need to sit in this coaching session in the beginning to say, let's breathe together. Let's get into the space of, being and being focused and fully present and so on and so forth. And then we still stay for a while in this very tactical conversation. And going from A to B and to C, and again, as a coach, you're holding the space and you're trying to rein it back in and to see, okay, where are we really going? And to cut a long story short, we had a few sessions. Last week, we had another session. And suddenly I had this completely different person sitting in front of me, still amazing in her whole personality and way of seeing the world and seeing her team. But she had so many aha moments after the last two conversations in particular, paired, and this again shows also the need for the support from management, paired
Mhm.
with feedback she received from her manager, where suddenly things fell into place and the penny had dropped. And she noticed there are actually a few small steps she could take in order to change the way she behaves, she listens to others, she gives herself space. And the sentence she used was, I feel really happy. I'm really content. And
Oh.
I'm really loving where I am now. This is a cool feeling. This is amazing. So, how can I keep this going? So, I'm saying it again, the work often happens after the session.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes time to realize, to even resonate with you in your own work, in your own body, soul, everything in your mind, to fit into places after sessions, after sessions by sessions, and too many inner work. And then you realize, of course, with the feedbacks from your manager, from your spouse, from your children, something's changed in you. What happened? And then you realize, yes, I changed. What a good thing to realize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's amazing. And I'm gonna close my monologue off by saying, you asked me earlier on how I became a coach, what got me into coaching. And when I came back from that solo travels just to recover and to feel myself again, people said to me, what happened to you? Who are you? And
Mhm.
that was the power, obviously, of self care,
Mhm.
of undivided acceptance by the people around me, but also from stepping into my natural flow. And my natural flow I find in the coaching work. So I can only encourage people who have a slight interest in coaching to give it a go and to explore it.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I know you are doing beautiful podcast, and you just, as you said, came out 190-hour podcast recording. And thank you so much for your time that you take this time with us. Is there anything, a last moment, last sentences you would like to share?
No, I mean, what I said now a couple of minutes ago is really what I want you to leave with here today. However, the only thing I want to say is thank you for all the amazing work that you are doing, sharing, some beautiful insights about coaching with this world, because this world needs more coaches and fantastic, individual who want to support others and really hold the space for people. Where do you get that nowadays? So thank you for the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you so much. We were here with Kathleen O'Sullivan, and we would like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more contents like this, for more interviews and podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to our Coach Magazine Global website too for upcoming issues. You can reach our already published four issues from our website, and you can watch more content like this in the future. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.